All right, let's keep this simple. There's a lot going on in the world of sports. A lot of noise, most of it gets overcomplicated. This isn't that. This is the four league report. One voice, four leagues, no wasted takes. I'm Dan DiPietro. All right, here's how we're doing this. We go where the story actually is. No forcing topics, no filler. If it matters, we're talking about it on here. Tonight, NBA Finals Game 2 just told us everything that we need to know about this series going forward. There were a lot of Knicks fans and a lot of content creators and a lot of personalities on the radio that were calling for sweeps, and people were calling those people crazy around the country. And the Spurs came in 2-1 favorites. And that's pretty heavy considering this run that the Knicks have been on. It's tough to say that a sweep isn't going to happen at this point. I mean, it's only ever happened twice in the history of the NBA where the team heading into the NBA Finals with home court lost the first two games at home. Both of those teams lost. So the Spurs would have to do something historic at this point. Listen, it wasn't pretty on the Knicks end for game 2, right? This was pure survival. Brunson, 20 points on 7 for 25, but, shooting, not very efficient at all, but, 6 assists, 5 steals, and he makes the biggest play of the game. And that's the difference right now. Karl Anthony Towns, 21 and 13, and honestly, he's been the best and most consistent player in the series. Wemby tonight, he had his bounce back. Still, for the most part, just didn't seem very confident, seemed out of whack, had a lot of turnovers, was getting out muscled inside. But, 29 points, 9 boards, 4 blocks. But the turnover and the missed jumper to win it. And that's the moment, man. And, we do have to keep in mind this dude's 22 years old. They were talking about it the inside the NBA crew. They're right. Chuck was saying this dude's going to own the league one day. He will own the league one day. But I don't think that day is today. And here's what matters right now. The Knicks have won 13 straight playoff games. They just went on the road against a really, really good, young, and energetic Spurs team that plays great defense and is well coached and has Greg Popovich looking down on them and still giving them advice from wherever he is in whatever suite. And the Knicks took both of these games. Even when San Antonio goes on a run, down 14 in the fourth quarter, they still can't finish it. So now it's simple. The Knicks don't need to be perfect. They're just tougher when it matters the most. And the Spurs, they might have the best player in the series, but they don't have control of the series. And just feel like whatever else they do in this series might be too little too late unless they sweep the Knicks at the Garden these next 2 games. And then we'll be talking about how it's going to be a 7-game dogfight and a historic series that nobody's ever going to forget on either side of the aisle, especially Knicks fans who've been waiting, 50 plus years for a championship. So, really, really amazing when you think about guys like Shamet and Deuce McBride and these guys have made such a huge difference for this Knicks team. And it takes an entire team. It takes a bench. It takes, people helping each other out when you're struggling, for a team to go on a run the way that the Knicks have. It's super impressive. It's championship pedigree. And I know you're probably thinking, well, what do you mean, champ? Well, a few of these guys have won a championship at Villanova. You know, Brunson, Hart, and Bridges. So here's the thing also. Everybody keeps talking about how, and it's tough to argue with this, how the Spurs are going to run the league one day. They're probably right, but let me tell you something. If the Knicks sweep them in this series, the party in New York is going to be insane. And it's going to be the biggest party in the history of New York. And if you're not from New York and you've never rooted for a New York sports team or gone to games or anything like that, well, what a lot of people around the rest of the country sometimes forget is New York is split in a lot of these leagues. You know, you got the Giants and the Jets. You know, most people are Giants fans, but it's pretty split. You got the Yankees and the Mets. Most people are Yankee fans, but it's still pretty split heavily. You know, the Rangers, the Islanders, that's not as split. And then you do have the Devils pretty close by. The point is that the Nets didn't move to Brooklyn until 15 years ago. They have not really carved out a fan following in New York City, in the heart of New York City, probably the way they thought they were going to when they moved there. It's pretty heavy with the Knicks right now, and the fans are out in droves. The bars are flooded. The scenes are flooded. It's going to be a huge party. And let me tell you something. If you don't think that could carry over into next season, and some older players may be wanting to come play for the Knicks on minimum deals, like a LeBron James, like a Kevin Durant. You never know. These things can happen. They might only get even stronger next year. Reports have come in that, and these were two guys that they were worried about leaving, Mitchell Robinson and Landry Shamet. It's been reported that they're going to take team-friendly deals to stay with the team next year. That is enormous. Mitchell Robinson's going to need to work on his free throw game over the summer, and I'm sure he will be. But nobody's talking about how this might be the start of something for the Knicks. Everybody's talking about how it's the start of something for the Spurs, even if they lose this series. And to me, it's still just a little disrespectful when you consider just how special this Knicks team has been. You know, they've only gotten better and tighter, and now they have a coach who gets it in terms of thinking big picture. Because I think Tom Thibodeau, the way that he coached this team definitely hardened them and prepared them for some dogfights, and that's all good. But I mean, Mike Brown, they use the whole team, and guess what? They've got dudes on this team who come off the bench who are scrappy, who knock down shots. They play great perimeter defense. They play great interior defense. It's a complete team, man. So let's not discount what they're doing. Let's not hand the league to the Spurs yet, who haven't won anything yet. Really interested to see how this series is going to finish. Because if it finishes the way a lot of people in New York think it's going to finish right now, like I said, it's going to be the biggest party that city has ever seen. And you better believe that there's going to be some carryover with that going into next season. You better believe that other players around the league are going to start to take notice about what got built there and what they might one day have a chance to be a part of. So, with that being said, let's transition to hockey. Vegas and Carolina. This is a dogfight, man. Series is tied 1-1. In game 2, Vegas went up 2-0. The game looked over, and then Carolina scored 3 goals in about 5 minutes and completely turned it around and took the game. Vegas did tie it up late. Didn't seem to matter, although if you ask their fans, I'm sure they thought that they were going to win, because that has basically been their luck all series and all this entire playoff run, I should say, is scrappy team comes from behind and just takes your heart. And that's what they've been doing. That's how they got here. They fired their head coach with 8 games left to go in the regular season. Just incredible stuff, man. I mean, just really incredible stuff. And this is, like I said, this is going to be a dogfight. Seth Jarvis ends it in overtime for Carolina. Big picture, the shots were even. 26-26. This thing's tight. This thing's even. Now we got a series where nobody's really in control. Momentum swings, late goals, overtime games. That usually means it's going long. It's going to be a 7-game series. I'd be shocked if it isn't a 7-game series. Total dogfight. Can't wait for game 3. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. So, moving on, we're just going to do a quick stop here with baseball, because this is where people get fooled early, okay? And standings matter. I'm not going to say that standings don't matter in early June, but the numbers underneath matter more, okay? The Dodgers are over 5 runs a game. The Braves are over 5 runs a game. The Brewers are quietly sitting on top of their division. Those teams are real, okay? There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Those teams are real. They're going to be in the thick of it again later on this year. In October, you could bet on it. Now, the individual player side of things, Schwarber's leading the league with 23 home runs. Just, he's just one of these guys who shows up big every now and then, and you're just like, man, he's been on so many teams. Why can't this dude be on my team? And chances are he probably has been or is right now. Otto Lopez hitting .336. Incredible job by him. Christopher Sanchez already over 100 strikeouts. But the bigger thing so far has been the contact data. Okay, guys like O'Neal Cruz, James Wood, Yordan Alvarez, they're leading in exit velocity and hard hit rate, and that's how you know that what they're doing so far this season isn't a fluke. All right. If the contact is loud, the production usually follows. Another thing we have to touch on in baseball real quick is the news that Aaron Judge is going to miss an indefinite amount of time. It came out a couple of nights ago that it was 4 to 6 weeks with a stress fracture in his upper rib. And Aaron Judge essentially came out today and said that if you're trying to put a timetable on my return, you're basically wasting your time. That's not good news if you're a Yankee fan. If you're a Yankee fan, you're thinking, oh my God, let's just get this guy back for a playoff run at this point. Because, listen, the Yankees, they're like plus 95 in run differential. The Rays are only plus 5. I think they've closed the gap on the Rays. I think that even with this news, they do have a really good chance to win the division. With the pitching the way that it's been, and news that they might be in on Tariq Skubal come trade deadline time, which if that happens, I mean, they at that point they'd have a better rotation than the Dodgers. I don't think that that's really going crazy. I think that as long as Aaron Judge is back doing baseball activities in the beginning of September, and this might be a really, it might be hard to see this at this point. As long as he gets enough time in for rehab, for baseball activities, to be back for a playoff run, that's really what you're hoping for. If you're a Yankee fan, listen, man, Aaron Judge is 34 years old. He's given you some incredible regular seasons, some all-time regular seasons that in this lifetime, it'd be hard to see that again, especially with the way that pitching is now in baseball. Just enjoy whatever you get left of Aaron Judge. I think it's also time maybe for the Yankees to reconsider him as a right fielder. As amazing as he is in right field, how do we lengthen this guy's career at the plate? And I think the way that you do it is you figure out a way to transition him to first base. Is that an easy transition to make? No. Is that a transition that I think that Aaron Judge could make? Yes, I do. So look out for that pretty seriously going into spring training next year, regardless of what happens the rest of this year. With that being said, let's touch on the NFL a little bit real quick. Two moves that actually matter, okay, that have happened recently. A.J. Brown to New England. Okay, that's a true number one receiver, immediate impact player for their offense. Patriots give up a first-round pick. The things that have come out in the media recently regarding A.J. Brown and the fact that he seems to have a lot of pride in this idea that he was the leak in Philadelphia and kind of defended it in a really weird way by saying that he thinks that helps push a team. Listen, I've never been in a professional locker room. I can't say firsthand that I know how these things work, but I've been watching sports for 30 years, and I've never heard of anything like that ending up being a positive for the team. And I think that you can see clearly by the way that the Eagles performed last year that they were really fractured and they were not playing as a team. And it's really interesting what's going on in New England now when you consider the personalities there. You don't associate the New England Patriots with the personalities and stories that have taken place there, and that now includes A.J. Brown. You can say, well, that's in the past. Okay, it might be in the past. However, if Bill Belichick were there, if Bill Parcells were there, would A.J. Brown be a New England Patriot right now? I'll let you decide, but for those of us who have followed the NFL for years and years and years, I think the answer is pretty clear. And again, it's an interesting topic because on the field, the Patriots got a lot better. A.J. Brown is a significant number one receiver who makes a difference for your team. So we'll see how the rest of this offseason plays out. We'll see if there's any more noise that comes out of Patriot camp. And definitely be paying close attention to that. And then you have Myles Garrett going to the Rams. This is simply just one of the best defensive players in football and has been for a long time. And now on a team with Les Snead pulling the trigger again by letting go of some draft capital that just is clearly trying to win it all. You know, maybe this is a move that they've had in mind for a while, which afforded them this idea that they could take Ty Simpson with the 13th pick overall, even though it in reality, if they had spent that pick on a Sadiq, or there were plenty of weapons out there. We're not really sure what the status is of Puka Nacua. He's had some personal troubles, off the field troubles, so we'll see about him. Maybe they're not worried about it. Okay, great. It was still an interesting pick. It was still a pick that garnered a lot of criticism. And if you look into it and the relationships, I mean, there does seem to be a little bit of nepotism going on there, which we see a lot in sports. It's not all that surprising. And I think it's, maybe Les Snead thinks that just because he's built this juggernaut, he's afforded the ability to be able to do these things and still operate the way that, he normally does. And maybe he knew one day in the future that Myles Garrett was going to be a Ram, because this is another post-June 1st situation that I'm sure in many ways for the Rams and for the Browns affects the salary cap. So this may have been one that they've had in the works for a while. They said, okay, I'm going to take the guy that I love at 13, and then in a couple of months when we have Myles Garrett, nobody's going to complain anymore. And he might be right about that. So, two really big blockbuster moves in June, not something that we normally see in the NFL. But because of the June 1st salary cap implications in both of the contracts, that's just the way that it worked out. With that being said, I would love to hear from you guys, and send me your thoughts on anything that we're covering. Send me some thoughts on anything that you would like me to cover. This is the 4 League Report. However, we do have FIFA World Cup coming up, and there are going to be a lot of people interested in the United States national team and how they perform. It's going to be pretty raucous in New Jersey and in places like Dallas, Fort Worth, and in Houston. So we're definitely going to be touching on that a little bit. I know that soccer isn't huge in this country, but this is something that only happens every 4 years, and it does not happen in this country every 4 years. Thank you for tuning in to the 4 League Report. I'm your host, Dan DiPietro, and we will see you next time.